In the heart of Rome, where the cobbled streets still echo with the footsteps of emperors and saints, stands a city unlike any other. The Vatican, the smallest state in the world, holds within its walls centuries of faith, power, and mystery. To many, it is simply the home of the Pope, a place of prayer, art, and pilgrimage. Yet for those who look more closely, the Vatican is also a labyrinth of hidden corridors, sealed archives, and whispered legends. And among the most enduring of these legends is the tale of the Black Pope, the man some believe to be the Vatican's true ruler. When night falls over the city of Rome, the golden dome of St. Peter's Basilica gleams faintly beneath the moonlight. Pilgrims leave the square, priests retreat behind stone walls, and silence settles over the colonnades of Bernini. It is in these hours of stillness that imagination awakens, that the mind drifts to stories of secrets hidden in shadows. The figure of the Black Pope, dressed not in white but in austere black, rises from history and legend, inviting us to wander deeper into a world both real and imagined. The title Black Pope does not come from skin color, nor from any official position acknowledged by the Vatican. It is instead a nickname, born of both respect and suspicion, for the superior general of the Society of Jesus, the Jesuits. This order, founded in 1540 by Ignatius of Loyola, was unlike any other in the Catholic Church. Its members were bound by vows of poverty, chastity, and obedience, but above all, obedience to the Pope. And yet, because of their discipline, their reach, and their influence, many began to wonder, did the Jesuits truly serve the Pope, or did the Pope unknowingly serve them? To understand the roots of this mystery, we must travel back to the turbulence of the 16th century. Europe was torn apart by the Protestant Reformation, kings were breaking away from Rome, and the Catholic Church faced one of the greatest crises in its history. It was in this storm that Ignatius of Loyola, a wounded soldier turned mystic, gathered a small band of followers. They were men of learning, men of courage, men willing to go wherever the Pope commanded. They vowed to be his loyal soldiers, to fight not with swords but with faith, intellect, and discipline. Soon, they were known simply as the Society of Jesus. The Jesuits became missionaries in far-off lands, traveling to Asia, Africa, and the Americas. They became educators, founding schools and universities that shaped the minds of generations. They became confessors to kings and advisors to rulers. Wherever power gathered, the Jesuits seemed to be near, whispering counsel, guiding decisions, and influencing the course of history. To their admirers, they were the Church's greatest defenders. To their enemies, they were manipulators, spies, and conspirators. And at the center of it all stood their leader, the superior general, dressed in black, elected for life, and commanding absolute obedience from thousands of followers. The world began to call him the Black Pope. The image of two popes, one in white, visible to the world, and one in black, hidden in the shadows, proved irresistible to the imagination. The Pope in white was the shepherd, blessing the faithful, leading ceremonies, and speaking words of peace. The Black Pope was his opposite, secretive, strategic, a figure whispered to command armies of Jesuits across the globe. In this duality, some saw balance, others saw rivalry. Was the Pope in white the symbol, while the Pope in black was the true strategist? Was the Jesuit general the hidden power behind the throne of St. Peter? As the centuries passed, these questions deepened. The Jesuits were accused of meddling in politics, of influencing monarchs, even of assassinating rulers who opposed them. In the 17th and 18th centuries, Their enemies accused them of plotting to control the world through education and intrigue. In 1773, under pressure from European monarchs, Pope Clement XIV suppressed the order. The Jesuits were scattered, their schools closed, their missions halted. And yet, like shadows that refuse to vanish, they survived in secret, waiting for their restoration. When Pope Pius VII restored the order in 1814, the Jesuits returned stronger than ever, their reputation as survivors only fueling the legend of their hidden power. The term Black Pope became both fascination and fear. For some, it symbolized the strength and resilience of the Jesuits. For others, it was proof of conspiracy, evidence of a hidden hand guiding history. In novels and pamphlets, the Black Pope was painted as a master of plots, a manipulator of kings, the real ruler of Christendom. Fact and fiction blurred, and in the silence of the Vatican nights, the legend grew. Imagine the corridors of the Vatican Library, where shelves stretch endlessly, filled with manuscripts and documents hidden from the public eye. Imagine the Apostolic Palace, where popes receive world leaders and diplomats. Behind these grand halls, critics whispered, another figure waited, the man in black, the Black Pope, whose counsel was more secret, more strategic, more lasting than any public blessing. Whether true or not, the image endures because it captures something universal. The belief that behind every visible throne, there may be another, invisible ruler. But what makes the story so captivating is not only what is known, but what is not. For every fact about the Jesuits' history, there is a shadow of suspicion. For every document proving their service to the Church, there is a rumor of hidden control. The line between history and legend dissolves, leaving us with a mystery that can never be fully solved. And it is in that uncertainty, in that blend of truth and imagination, that the figure of the Black Pope finds his power. As the night deepens and the city of Rome lies quiet, we return again to the image of the Vatican under moonlight. The Pope in white sleeps in his chambers, the lights of St. Peter's fade, and the world outside drifts into dreams. Yet somewhere, perhaps in a quiet office lit by a single candle, the Black Pope is imagined, writing letters, making decisions, guiding unseen networks across continents. Whether real or myth, his presence lingers in the mind, a reminder that history is not only written by those we see, but also by those we do not. And so, Block 1 ends not with an answer, but with a question. Who truly rules the Vatican? The Pope in white, visible to the world? Or the Black Pope, hidden in shadows? Perhaps neither, for power is never so simple. Yet as long as whispers echo in marble corridors, as long as secrets rest in locked archives, the legend will endure. The Black Pope, the Vatican's shadow, remains both a man of history and a figure of mystery, forever walking the line between fact and fear, between truth and imagination. When dawn broke over the 16th century, Europe was a continent in turmoil. Kingdoms were rising and falling, faith was splintering, and the Catholic Church, once unquestioned in its authority, found itself under attack from every side. The Protestant Reformation had cracked the unity of Christendom, spreading ideas that challenged centuries of tradition. In this storm of change, one man, Ignatius of Loyola, emerged with a vision that would alter the future of the Church. His followers would become known as the Jesuits, soldiers of faith who carried both hope and fear wherever they went. And from their ranks, the legend of the Black Pope began to take shape. Ignatius of Loyola was no ordinary priest. Born into nobility in the Basque region of Spain, He first dreamed of glory on the battlefield rather than in the chapel. A soldier at heart, he sought honor and adventure, until one day a cannonball shattered his leg during a siege. In the long months of recovery, as his body healed, his spirit began to change. With little to read but books of saints and scripture, Ignatius turned his soldier's discipline inward. What had once been ambition for the sword became ambition for the soul. He began to imagine a company of spiritual warriors, bound not by armor but by faith, ready to serve the Pope with absolute obedience. By 1540, his vision had become reality. The Society of Jesus was officially recognized by Pope Paul III. Its rules were strict, its members few, but its mission was vast. Unlike monks who withdrew into cloisters, Jesuits went out into the world. They taught in schools, preached in cities, traveled to the farthest corners of the earth. They vowed to go wherever the Pope sent them, no matter the danger. Their obedience was legendary. If the Pope commanded, they obeyed without question. To many, this loyalty was admirable. To others, it was frightening. What kind of power might such obedience create, if directed by a single leader in black? The superior general of the Jesuits, chosen for life, commanded this army of priests. His word was law within the order, and his reach stretched across continents. From Europe to Asia, from Africa to the Americas, Jesuits carried his directives. They wrote letters across oceans, reporting on politics, cultures, and faith. The general, though unseen by most of the world, seemed to have eyes and ears everywhere. Kings might rule nations, but the Jesuit general ruled hearts and minds. It was not long before people whispered, "Here, in this quiet man dressed in black, was a shadow pope." Jesuits were brilliant educators. They founded schools and universities that trained both the poor and the elite. Their classrooms produced thinkers, diplomats, and rulers. To study under the Jesuits was to receive an education not only in letters and numbers, but in discipline, rhetoric, and loyalty. Parents entrusted their children to Jesuit schools, and in return, the Jesuits shaped generations. Knowledge is power, and in this, the Jesuits excelled. Critics began to ask, were these schools for learning or for control? Was the Jesuit classroom a place of wisdom, or a place where hidden influence was planted, to bloom decades later in positions of power? Beyond Europe, the Jesuits ventured into lands unknown to most Europeans of their time. They traveled to India, China, and Japan. They walked the jungles of South America, stood in the courts of emperors, and preached to villages thousands of miles from Rome. They adapted to cultures with astonishing skill. In China, they dressed like scholars, studied language and philosophy, and shared knowledge of astronomy and science. In South America, they built missions that sheltered indigenous peoples, teaching both faith and new ways of life. To admirers, this was dedication. To skeptics, it was strategy. Wherever they went, Jesuits blended faith with influence, spirituality with politics. It was in these very successes that suspicion grew. The Jesuits seemed too capable, too disciplined, too everywhere. Kings began to worry that Jesuits advised their rivals as well as themselves. Nobles whispered that Jesuits answered only to their superior general, not to crowns or parliaments. Pamphlets accused them of plots, poisonings, and manipulation. The image of the superior general darkened. Dressed in black, ruling unseen over a global order, he became the Black Pope in the minds of many. Feared, respected, and never fully understood. The 17th century only deepened these shadows. As Jesuits rose in influence, enemies painted them as puppeteers of Europe. In times of political crisis, blame often fell upon them. They were accused of swaying monarchs, stirring revolts, and shaping the fate of nations behind the curtain. Some saw their hand in the fall of kings, others in the outbreak of wars. Most accusations were exaggerated, but the reputation stuck. In courts and marketplaces, in taverns and palaces, the question was asked, does the Pope in white truly lead the Church, or is it the Black Pope, hidden behind the scenes, who holds the real power? What gave this image strength was the Jesuits' secrecy. Their training was long and rigorous, their vows absolute. To join the society was to surrender the self to obedience. Their general commanded not soldiers with swords, but men with words, minds, and faith sharper than any blade. They were everywhere, yet invisible. They were known, yet unknown. And in that paradox, fear grew. The 18th century brought the order's greatest trial. In country after country, the Jesuits were expelled. Monarchs accused them of interfering with politics, of growing too powerful, of plotting against rulers. France, Spain, Portugal, all turned against the society. At last, in 1773, the Pope himself, under immense pressure, suppressed the Jesuits entirely. The order was dissolved, its schools closed, its priests scattered. To the world, it seemed the Black Pope had fallen. And yet, like shadows that refused to fade, the Jesuits endured. In secret, in exile, in whispers, they survived. In Russia, where suppression was not enforced, they continued their work quietly. In other lands, former Jesuits carried on their mission under different names. The Black Pope had been silenced, but only for a time. In 1814, Pope Pius VII restored the order, and the Jesuits returned with renewed vigor. Their survival only deepened the legend, for how could an order so powerful, so disciplined, ever truly be destroyed? The Black Pope, as superior general, remained an enigma. He was not seen blessing crowds from balconies, nor delivering sermons in grand cathedrals. He worked behind doors, commanding his order, sending directives, guiding strategies. His power was not in pageantry, but in influence. His attire was simple black, yet in the imagination of the world, it was darker still, cloaked in mystery, suspicion, and myth. And so, the story of the Jesuits and their general became more than history. It became legend. Admirers saw saints and scholars. Enemies saw conspirators and tyrants. Between truth and rumor, fact and fiction, the figure of the Black Pope grew. Even now, centuries later, the shadow remains, a man of obedience, a leader of faith, yet forever cast as the hidden ruler of the Vatican, the one who wears black in a world that sees only white. The story of the Jesuits, and of the so-called Black Pope, cannot be told without facing the darkness of suppression. The 18th century was a time of upheaval across Europe. The Age of Enlightenment was dawning, monarchs were reasserting their power, and the Church itself was losing the unquestioned authority it had once held. In this turbulent climate, the Jesuits, with their vast network of schools, missions, and political influence, became a target. Their rise had been meteoric, their reach astonishing. Yet the same qualities that made them effective servants of the Church made them appear dangerous to kings and ministers who feared rivals in their own realms. By the 1750s, hostility toward the Society of Jesus was mounting. In France, philosophers accused them of clinging to superstition and of undermining the new rational age. In Portugal, Prime Minister Pombal saw them as obstacles to reform, accusing them of meddling in politics and inciting rebellion in South America. In Spain, resentment grew that Jesuits seemed to answer not to the crown, but to their general in Rome. One by one, powerful monarchs turned against the order. Expulsions began, first in Portugal in 1759, then in France in 1764, then Spain and its colonies in 1767. Thousands of Jesuits were forced from their homes, marched onto ships, and scattered across Europe. Enemies of the Jesuits rejoiced. Pamphlets claimed that the Black Pope's hidden empire was crumbling. Satirists mocked the once feared order as broken and powerless. Yet even in these years of exile, the image of the Black Pope did not fade. If anything, the secrecy surrounding the Jesuits during suppression only made them more mysterious. People whispered, "Surely such disciplined men could not vanish so easily. Surely their general, even stripped of power, still guided them in the shadows." The legend survived, even as the order seemed destroyed. In 1773, the blow came from the highest authority of all. Under immense pressure from the Bourbon monarchies of Europe, Pope Clement XIV issued a decree suppressing the Society of Jesus entirely. The Jesuits were disbanded. Their schools were seized, their missions dissolved, their members scattered. To the world, it appeared that the Black Pope had fallen for good. Critics declared victory. The shadow pope was gone, the order disarmed, the danger ended. But history has a way of surprising those who believe it is finished. Though officially suppressed, the Jesuits endured. In Protestant lands, former members quietly continued their teaching. In Orthodox Russia, Empress Catherine the Great, skeptical of Rome's decrees, refused to enforce the suppression. Jesuits there carried on openly, running schools and missions under the watchful eye of their general, though his power was now cloaked in secrecy. In far-flung corners of the world, Jesuit influence lived on through former pupils and allies. The order was wounded, but it was not dead. For 40 years, the Jesuits remained in this twilight state, dispersed, diminished, yet unbroken. And in this very endurance, the legend of the Black Pope grew stronger. How could a suppressed order remain so resilient? How could an organization declared abolished still wield such influence? To conspiracy theorists of the time, the answer was clear. The Jesuits had gone underground, and the Black Pope ruled from the shadows more secretly than ever before. Suppression had not destroyed them, it had transformed them into something more elusive, more enigmatic, more feared. Then, in 1814, the tide turned. Pope Pius VII, recognizing the need for the Jesuits' talents in education and mission work, restored the Society of Jesus. After decades in exile, the order returned, reopening schools, re-establishing missions, and reclaiming its place in the heart of the Church. To friends of the Jesuits, it was a triumph of faith and resilience. To their critics, it was proof that the Black Pope could never be defeated. Like a shadow that lengthens at sunset, the Jesuits had reappeared stronger than before. The 19th century, however, was an age of suspicion. Revolutions swept across Europe, governments toppled, new ideologies rose. And in every crisis, some pointed to the Jesuits. They were accused of supporting monarchs against republics, of manipulating politics to preserve Catholic power, of influencing education to mold future leaders. The Black Pope, once thought destroyed, was now more feared than ever. His title became shorthand for hidden control, for a secret ruler behind thrones and parliaments. Anti-Jesuit literature flourished. Pamphlets, novels, and political speeches painted the Jesuits as puppeteers of nations. The superior general, cloaked in black, became the symbol of invisible power. In the imagination of many, he was the true pope, directing the church from the shadows while the white-clad pontiff served as a figurehead. Some even claimed that wars and revolutions were orchestrated at his command, that no decision in Europe was made without his hand in the game. These accusations were rarely grounded in fact, but myths often thrive where facts are scarce. In reality, the Jesuits of the 19th century were rebuilding, teaching in classrooms, guiding missions abroad, serving in parishes. Their work was visible, ordinary, and human. Yet the aura of mystery clung to them. The general's black cassock, the secrecy of their deliberations, the obedience of their members, all fed the image of a hidden power. The contrast between the Pope in white, blessing crowds from St. Peter's, and the general in black, laboring behind closed doors, created a narrative too compelling to resist. The world loves a shadow, and the Jesuits provided one in abundance. By the late 19th century, the legend of the Black Pope had spread beyond Catholic lands. In Protestant countries, it became a symbol of Catholic intrigue. In secular nations, it embodied the fear of religion interfering with politics. Even in popular culture, novels and pamphlets kept the myth alive. To some, the Black Pope was a sinister puppet master. To others, he was simply a disciplined leader of a misunderstood order. But whatever the interpretation, the legend would not die. As the century closed, the world was changing once again. Science was advancing, empires were expanding, and the Church was grappling with modernity. Yet through all these changes, the figure of the Black Pope remained in the background, a reminder that beyond the visible structures of power, people will always imagine another, hidden hand guiding events. The story of suppression and survival did more than mark a chapter in Jesuit history. It cemented the mystique of the Black Pope as a figure who could not be silenced, who could not be erased, who would always return. And in this endurance, myth and history fused, creating a legend that lingers even into our own time. When visitors step into St. Peter's Square, their eyes are drawn upward, to the balcony where the Pope in white appears, blessing the faithful, smiling gently, raising his hands in prayer. To the world, he is the visible heart of the Catholic Church, the shepherd of over 1 billion souls. His white cassock gleams beneath the sun, a symbol of purity, peace, and spiritual guidance. Yet behind this brilliant image, the imagination of many conjures another figure, clothed not in white but in black, unseen by the crowds, hidden behind walls of stone. This is the Black Pope, the superior general of the Jesuits, a man whose life is spent not in pageantry but in governance, not in blessing the masses but in commanding a global order. This duality, the Pope in white and the General in black, captivated minds in the 19th and 20th centuries. The white-robed Pope was a father figure, known to all. The black-robed General was an enigma, known only to a few. The Pope stood in the light, the General remained in the shadows. Together, they became two sides of a single coin in the imagination of critics and admirers alike. Was the Pope in white the spiritual face of the Church, while the Pope in black was its strategist? Was the visible leader merely a symbol, while the hidden leader held the real reins of power? These questions, though rarely grounded in fact, shaped an enduring myth. The imagery was irresistible. In every story of power, people imagine a visible ruler and a shadowed one. Kings may wear crowns, but advisors whisper in their ears. Presidents may speak to nations, but unseen officials shape policy. In the Vatican, this universal pattern seemed to take physical form. One pope in white, seen by the world, and another in black, commanding unseen authority. Even if the reality was different, the superior general ruling only his order, not the entire church, the symbolism proved too powerful to ignore. During the 19th century, as the Jesuits rebuilt their order after suppression, the myth of the Black Pope only grew stronger. Anti-Catholic movements in Europe and America seized on the idea, portraying Jesuits as sinister agents of control. In political speeches, they were accused of undermining freedom. In novels, they were cast as villains plotting world domination. The superior general, though unknown to most, was painted as the mastermind of a vast conspiracy. His black robes became a symbol not of humility, but of secrecy. His very obscurity made him more frightening. For if he was invisible, surely he was powerful. The white pope, meanwhile, became increasingly visible. In the late 19th century, with the loss of the Papal States, the Pope was confined to the Vatican, but his spiritual role grew. Pilgrims flocked to Rome, photographs spread his image, newspapers reported his speeches. The Pope in white became a global figure, while the Black Pope remained hidden, almost mythical. The contrast could not have been sharper. One man stood before the world, the other stood behind it. The 20th century brought world wars, revolutions, and global transformations. Through it all, the Jesuits continued their work in education, science, and mission. They advised leaders, taught in universities, and served in distant lands. Yet suspicion never left them. In times of conflict, enemies accused them of espionage. In times of political change, critics claimed they manipulated events. The superior general, the Black Pope, became the face of these suspicions. Whether or not he truly wielded such power mattered less than the fact that people believed he might. As mass media expanded, the image of the Black Pope spread beyond religious circles. In novels and films, Jesuits were depicted as cunning, mysterious, even dangerous. Secret societies fascinated readers, and the Jesuits, with their discipline and secrecy, fit the pattern perfectly. Conspiracy theories flourished, suggesting that the Black Pope controlled not only the Vatican but governments, banks, and armies. Each new rumor added another layer to the myth. In reality, the relationship between the White Pope and the Black Pope was not rivalry but cooperation. The superior general led the Jesuits, one order among many in the Church. His authority extended only over his members, not over the Vatican itself. Yet because the Jesuits were influential, because they were everywhere, from universities to missions to the highest halls of power, the idea of hidden control persisted. It was easier and more dramatic to imagine a shadow ruler than to accept the complex reality of church governance. By the mid-20th century, with the election of popes like John XCI and Paul VI, the Church entered a new era. The Second Vatican Council opened doors, reformed practices, and sought dialogue with the modern world. The Jesuits played a role in these changes, advising and participating in debates. Once again, their influence sparked both admiration and suspicion. The Superior General, as always, remained in the background, his black robes a contrast to the white cassock of the Pope. What made the legend so enduring was its adaptability. In times of crisis, the Black Pope was blamed for turmoil. In times of success, he was credited with secret planning. He became whatever people needed him to be: a villain, a mastermind, a ghostly ruler. The Pope in white could do no wrong without someone suspecting the Pope in black stood behind him. The arrival of mass conspiracy culture in the late 20th century gave the myth new life. Writers and filmmakers folded the Black Pope into larger narratives about hidden elites, secret societies, and global plots. The Jesuit general, often unknown to ordinary people, became a convenient symbol of secret power. His obscurity was his power. Because few knew his name, he could be imagined as anything. Meanwhile, in the real Vatican, the White Pope remained the center of attention. Crowds gathered to hear him speak. Cameras broadcast his image across the world. His words carried hope and controversy alike. The Black Pope remained unseen, mentioned only in whispers or in the writings of conspiracy theorists. Yet in that very silence, his legend grew. For in the human imagination, what is unseen often feels more powerful than what is visible. The 21st century added an extraordinary twist to the story. In 2013, Pope Francis was elected, the first Jesuit pope in history. For the first time, the supposed opposition between the White Pope and the Black Pope dissolved into one man. Francis, once a Jesuit provincial, had himself lived under the authority of a superior general. Now he wore the white cassock, yet his roots were in the black. To some, this was a symbol of reconciliation, a merging of myth and reality. To others, it was proof that the Black Pope had finally stepped fully into the light. And so the legend of the white and black popes continues. It is not simply about two men or two offices. It is about light and shadow, visibility and secrecy, power seen and power imagined. The Pope in white offers comfort to the faithful, standing before the world as a symbol of unity. The Pope in black lingers in the imagination, a symbol of hidden strength, of whispers in the dark, of mysteries never fully revealed. In truth, the relationship between them is not one of rivalry, but of roles. One leads the church, the other leads an order. One speaks in public, the other works in private. Yet myth has its own power, and the myth of the two popes, one white, one black, remains one of the most enduring in the story of the Vatican. The century was a storm of upheavals. Empires collapsed, wars consumed continents, and ideologies clashed in struggles that would decide the fate of billions. Amid this turbulence, the Vatican remained a constant, ancient institution at the heart of Europe. Yet its endurance and its secrecy made it a target for suspicion. As the world confronted fascism, communism, and the dawn of the nuclear age, a familiar figure returned to the stage of imagination. The so-called Black Pope, the Jesuit superior general, seen by critics as the hidden ruler behind the Pope in white. The myth of the Black Pope did not begin in the 20th century, but the century's violence gave it fresh energy. In the shadow of war, people sought explanations for chaos, often turning to conspiracies. For many, it was easier to believe in hidden masterminds than in the randomness of history. The Jesuits, with their discipline, global reach, and reputation for secrecy, seemed to fit the role perfectly. The idea of a black pope commanding unseen forces grew, spreading from whispered rumors into popular culture, political propaganda, and mass media. The World Wars and the Jesuit question. During the First World War, Europe was drenched in suspicion. Each nation feared spies and traitors, and accusations spread like wildfire. Jesuits, with houses across national borders, were easy scapegoats. In some countries, they were accused of secretly favoring the enemy. In others, they were painted as agents of Rome undermining national loyalty. The superior general in Rome, silent, cloistered, little known, became a convenient symbol for these fears. After the war, Europe struggled with collapse and revolution. Monarchies fell, republics rose, communism advanced, and fascism emerged. In this uncertain world, the Jesuits were both admired for their schools and distrusted for their influence. Writers depicted them as cunning strategists who manipulated events from behind the scenes. The term Black Pope surfaced repeatedly, not just in church history but in political debates and sensationalist pamphlets. Then came the Second World War. The Vatican stood officially neutral, attempting to preserve peace and protect victims. Yet neutrality itself bred suspicion. Some accused the Pope of aiding fascists, others claimed he secretly opposed them. The Jesuits, close advisors to the papacy, were drawn into the controversy. In Nazi propaganda, they were painted as global manipulators, enemies of the Reich. In communist rhetoric, they were portrayed as agents of capitalism and reaction. In democratic countries, conspiracy theorists whispered that the Jesuit general was orchestrating events across battle lines, controlling both sides at once. The image of the Black Pope as a mastermind thrived in such chaos. He was invisible, yet his supposed reach was limitless. If tanks rolled into cities, if governments fell, if alliances shifted, conspiracy theorists found a hidden hand and pointed to the Jesuits. Reality was simpler. Jesuits, like other clergy, struggled to survive, to protect their communities, and to navigate impossible choices. But the myth was stronger than reality. The Cold War, a new stage for old fears. With the end of the Second World War came a new era of suspicion, the Cold War. The globe was divided between East and West, communism and capitalism, Soviet power and American influence. Each side looked for infiltrators, spies, and hidden forces. Once again, the Jesuits became convenient suspects. In communist countries, propaganda denounced them as tools of imperialism. In the Soviet Union, the Jesuits were accused of spreading anti-Marxist ideology and undermining socialist states. Pamphlets and speeches described the Black Pope as the hidden commander of an anti-communist crusade. In the West, meanwhile, some right-wing groups feared Jesuit influence over democratic governments, portraying them as puppet masters controlling presidents and parliaments. The superior general of the Jesuits during much of this era was Father Pedro Arup, a man of deep spirituality and modern vision. He emphasized social justice, education, and service to the poor. Yet even his humanitarian mission was recast by conspiracy theorists. To critics on the right, his commitment to justice looked like Marxist infiltration. To critics on the left, his loyalty to the Vatican made him an enemy of progress. Either way, the Black Pope remained in the shadows of suspicion. It was during the Cold War that conspiracy literature flourished in the West. Self-published books, pamphlets, and later radio programs spread the idea of a Jesuit world conspiracy. The Black Pope was described as ruling not only the Vatican but also the CIA, the United Nations, the banks of Europe, and even secret weapons programs. These claims were rarely supported by evidence, but they spread widely. The very obscurity of the Jesuit general made him an ideal villain. Few knew his face or his name, so he could be imagined as anything. Popular culture and the allure of the shadow. The 20th century was also the age of film, radio, and television. Popular culture embraced the imagery of secret societies, hidden rulers, and shadow governments. Novels painted Jesuits as cunning plotters. Movies borrowed their reputation for mystery. Television dramas hinted at Vatican intrigue. The figure of the Black Pope slipped into this cultural stream, sometimes explicitly, sometimes as an unnamed archetype of the hidden ruler. Why was this idea so captivating? Because it mirrored a timeless pattern in storytelling. Every visible leader, from kings to presidents, invites the question: who whispers in his ear? Who stands behind him, unseen by the public eye? The Pope in white was a perfect candidate for such speculation, and the Black Pope, real but hidden, fit the role of his supposed shadow. In fiction and rumor, they became two halves of a secret drama. The light and the dark, the public and the private, the blessing hand and the guiding hand. Vatican II and the expansion of the myth. In the 1960s, the Second Vatican Council transformed the Catholic Church. Liturgies changed, dialogues with other faiths opened, and the Church sought to engage the modern world. The Jesuits were at the heart of this transformation, with many theologians, scholars, and advisors shaping the debates. To admirers, this was proof of their intellectual brilliance. To critics, it was evidence that the Black Pope was orchestrating the very future of Christianity. Conservative groups accused the Jesuits of betraying tradition. Radical groups accused them of clinging to hierarchy. The Superior General, Father Arup, was blamed by both sides. The myth of the Black Pope absorbed these conflicts, presenting him as the hidden manipulator of history. In truth, the council was vast and complex, involving thousands of voices. But for conspiracy theorists, complexity was too difficult. A single secret ruler was easier to imagine. The rise of global conspiracy culture. By the late 20th century, the culture of conspiracy had gone global. The assassination of John F. Kennedy in 1963 fueled suspicions of shadow governments. The Watergate scandal in the 1970s revealed real political corruption, which only made secret power theories more believable. As people lost trust in institutions, they sought explanations in hidden plots. The 21st century has brought unprecedented change to the world. Global communication, instant news, and digital networks have created a landscape where information flows faster than ever, and rumors travel almost instantly. In this environment, myths and legends that once circulated quietly in pamphlets, books, or whispered conversations can explode across the internet overnight. The figure of the Black Pope, once confined to historical speculation, has found a new life in modern conspiracy culture. The election of Pope Francis in 2013 marked an extraordinary moment in Vatican history. For the first time, a Jesuit became Pope, a white Pope who had been trained under the authority of the Black Pope. This convergence of myth and reality captivated observers and fueled endless speculation. Many commentators celebrated the election as a sign of renewal and humility. Others, particularly those steeped in conspiracy culture, saw it as confirmation of long-held suspicions. The shadow of the Black Pope had stepped fully into the light, influencing the Church from within. Francis's Jesuit background is central to understanding this perception. Jesuits are trained to think critically, act strategically, and serve with disciplined obedience. Their influence in education, diplomacy, and social activism is vast. While the Superior General of the Society of Jesus, the Black Pope, does not wield authority over the Pope directly, the narrative of hidden power has been deeply ingrained in popular imagination. Francis, with his humility, reformist approach, and global prominence, became a living symbol of this duality. A pope in white who had been shaped by the shadow in black. In the modern era, conspiracy theories surrounding the Black Pope have multiplied. The Internet and social media have enabled communities of theorists to connect and expand narratives. Forums, blogs, YouTube channels, and podcasts discuss alleged secret agendas, global financial manipulation, and hidden influence over world governments. The Black Pope is often linked to the Illuminati, secret banking networks, and shadowy elite councils. While evidence for these claims is virtually non-existent, their spread is rapid and compelling. The figure embodies the human fascination with invisible power, the idea that someone, somewhere, controls events that appear chaotic to ordinary observers. Digital culture has amplified the legend. Videos dissect papal gestures, statements, and Jesuit history, suggesting hidden codes or secret instructions. Influencers speak of a Jesuit network guiding global policy. Memes circulate depicting the Black Pope as the ultimate mastermind. In a world where information is abundant but context is often missing, these images carry weight. The Black Pope becomes a symbolic touchstone, representing both fear and fascination with hidden authority. Interestingly, the legend also intersects with modern religious and political discourse. Conservative commentators sometimes frame the Jesuits as architects of social change, influencing cultural and educational institutions. Progressive commentators, meanwhile, note the Jesuits' emphasis on social justice, environmental stewardship, and poverty alleviation. In both cases, the Black Pope functions as a conceptual shorthand for the unseen influence of disciplined, intelligent networks. Reality is nuanced. Myth is straightforward. The Black Pope is simpler to grasp than complex institutional dynamics, and therefore more powerful in imagination. Pop culture continues to reinforce the figure. Films, novels, and television shows frequently depict Jesuits as secretive strategists, sometimes villainous, sometimes heroic. In online gaming and virtual storytelling, the Black Pope has appeared as an archetype of hidden authority, commanding unseen forces. Even when not explicitly named, the shadow of the Black Pope lingers in narratives about invisible leaders, secret societies, and global conspiracies. The digital age has democratized both access and speculation. Anyone can write, upload, or broadcast theories about the Black Pope. Discussions that once took place in niche academic or theological circles now occur on public platforms with millions of viewers. The figure is no longer confined to the history of the Jesuit order. He has become a symbol of modern anxieties about control, transparency, and trust. In a globalized world, the idea of a single, disciplined actor capable of influencing events resonates powerfully. Pope Francis himself embodies the paradox. Known for simplicity, compassion, and humility, he does not fit the stereotypical image of a manipulative, shadowy ruler. Yet because of his Jesuit background, conspiracy theorists immediately link him to the Black Pope. In their narratives, he is both the White Pope and a living extension of the Black Pope, a personification of hidden influence, operating in full view of the public. This duality fascinates, frightens, and inspires countless online discussions. The 21st century has also added complexity through global crises. Financial collapses, pandemics, climate change, political upheaval, all phenomena too vast to be fully comprehended by individuals, have encouraged the imagination to search for hidden causes. The Black Pope, already embedded in legend, is invoked as a figure of explanation. His historical connection to education, diplomacy, and strategy provides the scaffolding for modern narratives of power. Even without factual basis, he functions as a conceptual anchor in the minds of those seeking to understand chaos. Despite all this, the reality of the Jesuits remains grounded in service, scholarship, and faith. The Superior General oversees an international religious order dedicated to education, missionary work, and spiritual guidance. While the order is disciplined and influential, its purpose is not global domination. Yet, in the age of digital media, perception often outweighs reality. The Black Pope persists as an archetype, a symbol of hidden authority, a figure in the shadows that complements the visible Pope in white. The legend of the Black Pope in the modern age, therefore, is a fusion of history, myth, and cultural anxiety. It thrives in social media ecosystems, in conspiracy literature, and in popular culture. It reminds us that even in an age of transparency, humans are drawn to shadows. We seek narratives that explain complexity through singular, personified forces. The Black Pope provides that narrative. He is both historical figure and mythic archetype, a testament to the enduring power of secrecy and imagination. And as the 21st century progresses, the story continues to evolve. Each papal election, each Vatican statement, each global crisis invites renewed speculation. The White Pope remains visible, a beacon of faith and ritual. The Black Pope remains invisible, a symbol of hidden guidance, mystery, and enduring fascination. The two, real and imagined, continue to define the imagination of millions around the globe. In this modern context, the legend is no longer confined to whispers in Europe or clandestine pamphlets. It exists in tweets, videos, forums, and streaming platforms. The Black Pope has entered the digital consciousness, becoming a figure that is as much part of global culture as he is part of religious history. His shadow has stretched across continents, through decades, and into the virtual age, proving that myths of hidden power never die, they only adapt to new worlds. The story of the Black Pope is one that stretches across centuries, continents, and human imagination. From the disciplined classrooms of Renaissance Europe to the digital forums of the 21st century, the figure of the Jesuit Superior General has inspired awe, suspicion, and fascination. He is both a man and a symbol, a historical leader of a religious order and a mythic archetype representing unseen influence. The enduring nature of this figure tells us as much about human perception as it does about the Jesuits themselves. The origins of the legend lie in the early Society of Jesus. Founded by Ignatius of Loyola in the 16th century, the order emphasized obedience, discipline, and intellectual rigor. Jesuits traveled the world, serving kings, teaching in universities, and spreading faith to distant lands. Their reach was extraordinary. By virtue of their global presence and centralized leadership, the superior general acquired an aura of influence that exceeded the bounds of his formal authority. For ordinary observers, this invisible network of educated, loyal men appeared almost omnipotent. The Black Pope was imagined as a shadow behind the Pope in white, a secret hand guiding events unseen. As centuries passed, the myth evolved. The suppression of the Jesuits in the 18th century created a fertile ground for speculation. Forced into exile, scattered across Europe, the Americas, and Asia, the Jesuits survived in secret. The perception of clandestine activity reinforced the idea of hidden power. By the time the order was restored in 1814, the legend had solidified. Even when suppressed, the Black Pope could not be destroyed. He persisted, operating from shadows, influencing history through subtle networks rather than direct command. The 19th and 20th centuries amplified the legend. Revolutions, world wars, and ideological struggles provided endless opportunities for the myth to thrive. In Europe, Jesuits were accused of manipulating monarchs, governments, and policies, often without any evidence. In North America, anti-Catholic sentiment transformed them into symbols of hidden, international control. The Cold War added further layers, with the Black Pope alleged to be orchestrating events across East and West. The convergence of political tension, global communication, and the human tendency to imagine conspiracies ensured that the legend remained alive. During this time, the duality of the White Pope and Black Pope became central to cultural imagination. The White Pope, visible, ceremonial, and accessible, embodied the public face of the Church. The Black Pope, hidden, disciplined, and secretive, became the symbol of control and strategy. Together, they formed a narrative that satisfied both the desire for order and the suspicion of hidden forces. To some, the Black Pope was merely an administrator. To others, he was the mastermind of a global conspiracy. Myth and reality intertwined, making it difficult to separate fact from fiction. The rise of mass media and the digital era has transformed the legend once again. In the 21st century, information travels instantaneously. Conspiracy theories about the Black Pope flourish on YouTube, social media, and online forums. Videos analyze gestures, quotes, and Jesuit history, suggesting secret meanings. Memes and posts depict him as the ultimate power behind world events. While most claims are baseless, the speed and reach of digital media ensure that the myth spreads faster and wider than ever before. The Black Pope has become a global symbol, a shorthand for hidden authority in a complex world. Pope Francis's election in 2013 exemplifies the intersection of reality and legend. A Jesuit himself, Francis embodies qualities attributed to the Black Pope: intelligence, strategic thinking, and a global perspective. Yet he wears the white cassock, blesses the faithful openly, and seeks transparency. This convergence challenges the traditional narrative of two opposing figures. To historians, it represents continuity and evolution within the Church. To conspiracy theorists, it appears as validation. The shadow now walks in light, influencing events with unparalleled authority. Modern conspiracies about the Black Pope are diverse and adaptive. He is said to control intelligence agencies, financial institutions, secret societies, and even global policy. He is linked to apocalyptic visions and geopolitical events. He is both feared and revered, villain and strategist, guardian and manipulator. What unites these claims is the central idea of invisible influence, of a figure so disciplined, so connected, that he operates beyond ordinary observation. While reality is far less dramatic, the myth persists because it fulfills a psychological need to explain complex global events through the lens of a single powerful actor. Yet the real Jesuits continue their work in education, humanitarian missions, and spiritual guidance. They serve in classrooms, parishes, and communities worldwide. Their influence is significant but transparent, measured in human impact rather than secret domination. The legend of the Black Pope overlays this reality with drama, mystery, and fear, demonstrating the enduring human fascination with shadows and secrets. The endurance of this legend is remarkable. From Renaissance Europe to the digital age, the Black Pope has remained a compelling figure. He is a reflection of the human tendency to imagine invisible forces at work, to seek explanations in narrative rather than probability, to perceive agency in the midst of chaos. He is also a testament to the power of disciplined, loyal networks of individuals who shape the world quietly, often without recognition. In sum, the Black Pope is both history and myth, fact and fiction. He is the superior general of the Jesuits, leading an order dedicated to faith, education, and service. He is the symbol of secret influence, a narrative constructed by centuries of speculation, rumor, and fascination. He exists in the shadows of the Vatican, in the imagination of theorists, and in the intersection of reality and legend. The story is far from over. Each global event, each papal election, each moment of societal uncertainty invites renewed speculation. The White Pope continues to lead openly, visible to millions. The Black Pope remains hidden, a shadow in human imagination. Together, they form a duality that is as much about perception as it is about power. The legend endures because it speaks to timeless questions. Who controls the world? Who is seen, and who remains unseen? Who guides history, and who observes it in silence? In the end, the Black Pope is eternal, not because of supernatural power, not because of global conspiracy, but because of human imagination itself. Across centuries, through wars, revolutions, exiles, and modern media, the figure persists. He is a symbol of discipline, loyalty, secrecy, and influence. He is the shadow behind the light, the hidden actor in a world that craves clarity. And as long as people wonder, speculate, and imagine, the Black Pope will remain, walking unseen through the corridors of history, a legend eternal, a shadow eternal, a story still unfolding.